Hello and welcome to the Fiber Co-op's first video on dyeing. Today we're going to show you how to dye wool fabric and it's all easy peasy. I do my dyeing with wool in the microwave. It takes very little time and anybody can do it with a little perseverance. First I want to talk about the supplies you will need, and first thing you need is jars, and I do recommend glass jars. You can use plastic jars, but glass is just a little more safe. I save my spaghetti jars. This isn't a brand thing. I save my spaghetti jars. I soak the labels off just because I like to be able to see inside the jar to make sure that all the dye has blended in with the water when I mix it. You just need one for each dye color. Today we're doing one color dyeing. So I've got 10 different colors I'm going to mix up. So you'll see how simple it is. The dye of choice for me for wool dyeing is Cushing dye. They sell them in packets, 1/3 of an ounce. It's about a couple of tablespoons. And it's enough to dye, they say enough to dye 2 pounds of fabric. Well, 2 pounds of fabric is a good basic average, but as you will find as you get into dyeing, 2 pounds of cotton is different than 2 pounds of wool. Wool is a lot bulkier, and so you need a bigger container. I have found that 1/2 yard of wool fabric, which is usually 54 inches wide, is about as much as you can dye with one package of color. So that's my recommendation to get started. Cushing, on my website you will find the color chart for the Cushing dyes, and you can go through it. There's just a wonderful variety of colors, and I like the richness that Cushing has in their dyes. These dyes are strictly for animal fibers: wool, mohair, feathers, and nylon. But I have found not much success dyeing nylon. And of course, nylon isn't just any synthetic. So you make sure if you're going to dye with this dye, it is nylon and not polyester, because it will not dye polyester. Next is vinegar. It's safe. We need a pair of tongs, and these are optional, and this is in case the water's too hot for you to put your hands in and touch the fabric. Gloves. I get my gloves from the dog store. Bowls. So do make sure that you get a plastic bowl that is microwave safe, and this bowl here, which is pretty large, has fit in every one of my microwaves, large or small. If you find when you're dyeing with wool, wool is a lot heavier than cotton, and so you might want to double them up so that you have the weight for them to carry all that water, dye, and fabric. I'm going to show you some of the fabrics I have dyed, and then I will talk about base colors on your fabric. Here is some pink, purple, royal purple, blue, green. Now the dyeing, I'm glad I brought this up. This is the kind of results you're going to get with the way I dye. I don't stir my dye. If you want to get a solid color, then I recommend you do pot dyeing on a camp stove or on your stove in a big pot. And you stir. You don't agitate, although we're making this wool felted anyway, but this is what the results are you are going to get from this dyeing process. Pretty golden color, old gold. And my nemesis, yellow, never seems to blotch. It always goes to a beautiful yellow, but I've yet to be able to get my yellows to do the blotchiness. That's just the nature of the beast. On every fabric is the same. Now these fabrics I just showed you are all dyed on an ecru colored wool, and depending on the wool color that you are dyeing on, depends on the results you're going to get. To soak your wool before you begin dyeing, you just need to put it in warm water. Why warm? Because the warm absorbs into the wool fabric quicker. You can leave it soaking overnight, you can leave it all day long, but you need to soak it so that every bit of fiber has water absorbed into it. I just leave them soak until I'm ready to go. I usually get up in the morning and cut my fabrics, put them into the water, do what I need to do around the house, and then go out and start my dyeing. 5 ounces of water into each jar, and into each jar goes 1 packet of dye. I will do the safety thing here. If you feel like you would inhale these fibers, or you're concerned with fibers getting in the air, you can wear a mask. I feel that this is fairly safe since the fibers, I've been dyeing for 4 or 5 years now, and I've never had any flyaway powder. Once I get my dye in my jars and there's still powder on the top of the water, put it onto the sprayer because that's giving more agitation, and I'm going to fill up the jar to the neck. Anything that doesn't get dissolved at this point will get agitated with a little whisk. The amount of water does not do anything because you're actually going to even add more water, a lot more water. This is just to get the dye diluted. I just wanted to point out I have a very, very old Formica top, which is why I'm dyeing in the kitchen, because it's not an issue with this countertop. Normally I dye out in my garage, but as you will see, I have wiped this countertop down and it's covered in dye, and it's really there. Luckily, bleach will get that right off, so don't worry about getting dye on your countertop as long as it's, I'm not saying that granite or any other surfaces won't dye. I'm just saying my experience with this Formica, I can bleach it over and get it right back to its original horrible condition. The mordant for wool dyeing is vinegar. It's safe, it's great. I love dyeing with these dyes for that reason. There's very little that goes into the ground. We have a septic tank and we do not feel that we're endangering it by putting these, the leftover water from the dyes into our septic. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can pour it out on the ground safely. So now we're going to mix the dye into the larger bowl, add a lot more water, add the fabric, and I'll show you my recommended way of adding the fabric so you do get the dye dispersed, and then we'll take it out to the dye area where we will start microwaving. One thing to know is it's not the amount of water you use to dye your product, it's the amount of dye you put in the water. So here we are adding the hottest water the tap will give us, and now I'm going to add my dye, all of it. I'm going to rinse it out so I get every bit of it. I'm going to take a whisk and I'm just going to make sure that all my dye powder is mixed up well. Mostly you'll learn your colors. Some colors mix very easily. Yellow is a booger. It wants to float on the surface all the time. So you really have to be sure that you get that yellow mixed in before you add your fabric. You don't have to worry about taking out too much of the water. I take my fabrics and I put them on the diagonal. So we go in at the point and pull it up a bit and go in and open it up a bit and go in and just keep pushing it down and make sure that it's dispersed. And yes, it looks like I'm probably going to get a whole solid fabric, but I actually will get the variation. And that is it. Now we're going to take this bowl of fabric and we're going to put it in the microwave and get it stewed. Okay, I just want to tell you a little bit about microwaves. I do not dye in the house microwave. I went to the thrift shop and I was lucky. I found a couple of old microwaves on sale, 50% off, so I got each one for $7.50. Great bargain. I love these old microwaves, the ones without the turntable in them. You will find you don't need a turntable. It's more irritation than anything else because your bowl is large. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't really matter either way. But this is a nice big microwave that holds a nice big bowl. The bowl goes in the microwave. So I do 2 minutes and 22 seconds and I start. We're going to do this 3 times. We're going to cook it for 2 minutes, let it rest for 2 minutes. Cook it for 2 minutes, let it rest for 2 minutes, cook it for 2 minutes, let it rest for 2 minutes, and then we take it out. I have finished dyeing these 2 batches of wool. They're close enough in colors that I can wash them together in the washing machine. Because this wool is being used for wool applique quilts and rug hooking, I'm not worried about felting. And so I will then place the cooked wool into the washing machine, put it through a wash cycle to get most of the dye out, and you can, if you like, add Synthropol, which is a special soap, pure soap, that is used to wash the dye out. And now what I do when I'm doing 2 different colors, I'll put one on one side of the tub, which we'll show you in a minute, and one over on the other side of the tub, just to stop it from contaminating too badly. I'm not worried. I have never had these kind of colors really invade one another's space. So I'm going to start the washing machine. I'm sorry about the noise. And I'm going to add a tablespoon of Synthropol into the wash. This is very concentrated, and we will let this run a full cycle. Once it's washed in the washing machine, it goes into the dryer until it's dry, and you're done. That's microwave dyeing. 6 minutes of dyeing and about 15 minutes of your time if you're all prepared and set up and organized, and it makes a fun result for you to play with in the end.